All right, good evening, everyone. We'd like to call the meeting to order. It's a regular council meeting for March 11, 2024. Welcome, everyone, guests and presenters. We'd like to start tonight with a moment of reflection, and then we'll get into the agenda. So we'll start with a moment of reflection now. All right. Tonight we have two agendas to approve. We have a consent agenda. If anyone wishes to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, Councillor Henniger, if anyone has anything they wish to pull from the consent agenda, definitely let us know. If not, motion to approve is on the floor. Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Our regular meeting agenda, we've been requested to add two items under new business, I-7 and I-8. The I-7 will be a MD Willow Creek request for comment on a proposed bylaw. And I-8 will be a topic regarding retiring one of our fire trucks. So with those two additions, a motion to approve the agenda as modified. Councillor Fox makes a motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. All right, moving on then to For the Good of Council. Does anyone have something they wish to share with the whole of council? Councillor Henniger?
Just because I've popped it on all of your desks, the Explore Skilled Trades and Career Fair is taking place on April 24th in the arena in Fort Macleod. It's free to attend for public from 10 to 6, so it's a long day, and the hope is that we'll see parents and guardians bringing their kids in there as well. And we've got some great partnerships with the Chamber of Commerce and the LRSD School Division, so they're busing in youth. It's also free to showcase your business, so our goal is 100 vendors, spanning from trades environments all the way to nonprofit groups, extendicare kind of environments. It's super, super exciting. We have hair schools coming to give like free resources and haircuts. So it's just going to be jam-packed of resources, but the focus is to showcase our rural opportunities, not only to youth, but families. And it's just going to be a great event. So it's free to attend for the public and free to showcase. I've left some in the gallery, but you can also check it out on the HR Advantage website. Again, free, and it's a nonprofit event annual. So I'd love to see everyone there, April 24th.
Thank you very much. That will be a big event. And that's at the arena, yes. Anyone else have something they wish to share? Our CEO, Anthony.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder to everyone out there that on Wednesday of this week, we have our town hall meeting and community conversations. So we're going to have a discussion about adding chickens and bees to the animal control bylaw, and a handful of other general topics about paving policy and a few other things there, just to try to get people out to have conversations. The first hour we'll be having conversations just with council and with administration to discuss the various projects, to kind of get some exposure to our staff. We'll have Public Works there, we'll have bylaw, we'll have finance. So a lot of general questions can be answered there, but we will have some information prepared as well. And then at 7 o'clock, we'll have a town hall to discuss the potential addition of the chickens and bees to the bylaw. Also would like to draw everyone's attention and remind everyone out there that we are having a by-election May 6th. Packages are available in the front office at the town here. You have to have nominations closed on April 8th. And so just a reminder to those out there who want to make a difference in their community, come put your name forward and be part of the by-election. And my last but not least, Macleod Landing subdivision. The lots are going for sale, and we're having a pre-sale that opens on April 3rd at 10 a.m. So if you have any questions, contact the town office and we can get you some information. But we're really excited about that development going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lots going on. I was going to mention, I got news today. Some of you know Linda Erickson. She was part of Prairies Can, and before that, part of Invest, a group that was overseeing yeah, some of the economic development parts. She passed away this morning, and that was a huge hit for the Economic Development Association throughout Alberta. She was involved in economic development for so many years, and it came quite suddenly, so everyone there is quite a bit in shock. Any other comments for the good of council? Seeing none, then we'll proceed with the next portion of our agenda. We have two delegations tonight. We have STARS, and we'd like to invite them to start tonight with their presentation. So look forward to hearing from you and all the good things you're doing.
Thank you so much. We're very pleased to be here with you and appreciate your time. I'm Glenda Farndon. I'm the Senior Municipal Relations Liaison for STARS. I've had the pleasure of working with municipal councils, urban and rural, across the entire province of Alberta for the past 18 years. And I'm very pleased to have my colleague with me as well, Jackie.
Hi there, I'm Jackie Seeley, born and raised in southern Alberta. I actually live in the small town of Bassano, where I worked in nonprofit for a number of years and also served on our municipal council. So I'm very pleased to be here with STARS and to share about this essential service. Thank you for having us.
So we'll get started. First and foremost, STARS is celebrating 38 years of serving Albertans. 2025 will be our 40th anniversary. In any type of critical situation, STARS is your best hope in a worst case scenario. You want to do this for me, please? Sure. So on the financial side of things, in 2020, we previously had a 10-year affiliation agreement in place for 20% government funding, which expired 2020, and we've been year to year ever since. And so with that, in 2022, Alberta Health Services made an announcement that they would look at moving to 50% of operational costs. So basically, the cost for a base in Alberta is $10 million per base. We have 3 bases, Calgary, Edmonton, and Grand Prairie, to serve the entire province. And so based on $10 million per base, $30 million operational costs, half of that, $15 million. So Alberta Health Services did top up to the $15 million. We have received that last year as well. This year is pending. We are in very high-level discussions right now, hoping to secure another 10-year long-term service agreement at the $15 million block funding. This funding does not include our Emergency Link Center, which is our dispatch center for all bases across Western Canada. It does not include education and training costs, and it does not include administration costs. So with that remaining, our STARS lottery is underway right now as we speak. We are celebrating over 30 years of a very successful, well-renowned STARS lottery, and it usually nets right at $10 million each year, which basically pays for one base in Alberta. So of that, with the additional other costs that are associated for complete service in Alberta, that means that we have roughly $18 million per year that must be fundraised. Our municipalities across the entire province are a part of that, and we're generating approximately, collectively, just over $2 million annually in municipal support. So this gives you an idea of where we're at across the province of Alberta and into northeastern BC, which is served from the Grand Prairie base. Everywhere that you see green is a municipal supporter annually of STARS. So you can see that we're very close to uniting the entire province. The white ones are the ones that are remaining not supporters yet, but we do have many requests out that are pending right now. In the red boxes, there are 9 municipal leaders that have been supporting STARS for decades. And they have reached levels of support starting at $500,000 up to $3 million in support. They are all represented with their logos on the helicopter as well. And they are now have made a fixed rate of support on a standing motion that we are a line item in their emergency protective services budget each year. The yellow boxes represent those that are either contributing at a minimum $2 per capita rate annually, or that they are building regional partnerships. So this means towns and villages that lie within the county's boundaries are also a supporter along with their county. So MD of Willow Creek is currently on board building regional partnership. We have Claire's Home that's been on board for a couple of years, as well as Town of Stavely through their community chest annually for many, many years. So we're building regional partnerships as well across the province, as you can see. Next slide, please. So this gives you an idea of a 5-year overview for the town of McLeod, as well as all missions, STARS-related missions within the MD of Willow Creek, up to February 18th of this year. So there's already been a few missions you see there shown for this year alone. Now for Fort McLeod, when we're talking specifically your hospital as well as scene calls, these are, we include the critical interfacility transfers, as many of the calls are in and around your area, but local ground ambulance has been able to take that patient to a hospital environment. But because it is of a critical nature, then STARS is still called in order to get that patient to tertiary care. So when we look at this overall, Fort McLeod specifically, that you would average about 8 to 9 missions each year on an annual average. Now you've seen we've had some that are, it's kind of up, down, in between. With that in mind though, 8 to 9 missions, if we're just talking operational mission cost only, this can represent up to $90,000 per year to your residents and areas, specifically to your community. There are a lot of mitigating factors around missions, you know, whether or not there's, it's an extended fuel, you know, where we're on location for prolonged extrication or something, so there's added fuel. There's difference depending on what the patient's needs are. For example, if the patient were to require thrombolytics for stroke, first we have to get that patient to the nearest hospital in order to have a CAT scan. But thrombolytics can be a $3,000 difference just for one patient. So there's a lot of mitigating factors on what is the cost per mission. Also included for Lethbridge Hospital, because many of the incidences that will occur, accident or illness in your area, that patient may have been taken by ground ambulance to Lethbridge Hospital. Lethbridge Hospital is one of the top 3 hospitals in Alberta that STARS serves. They are averaging over 70 missions just in interfacility transfers alone each year. Next slide, please. So this is an interesting project that we have undertaken. It's 10 years in the making. This is a postal code project. Let's look on the left-hand side first. The blue dots that are shown within the MD of Willow Creek boundaries and the listing below are the areas where residents have specifically been flown that possess a postal code for one of these resident communities. So we were able to access data back to 2010. So 232 total residents within the boundaries of MD of Willow Creek have been flown by STARS. Fort McLeod specifically, 52 residents that have a Fort McLeod postal code. But interestingly enough is on the right-hand side. The listings across the bottom or the red dots represent all the areas outside of MD of Willow Creek boundaries where these 232 residents have been flown. Accidents and illness do not happen just because you are close to home. Out of these 232 total residents, they have been served by 4 different STARS bases across 3 provinces. 161 of them were picked up within MD of Willow Creek. 71 of them, which can include your residents as well, were flown from 20 other locations across 3 provinces. This is a testament to why the municipal partnership is so important. This entails and represents that your residents have access to STARS all across Western Canada, where we have 6 bases starting in Winnipeg, Regina, Saskatoon, and then the 3 bases also in Alberta, and we serve northeastern and southeastern BC as well. Jackie.
STARS is more than rapid transport. So our emergency link center is located in Calgary, and they're integrated with all dispatch centers and have access to all resources across the province. So they use very precise mapping coordinates and also dispatch HALO in the southeast and HERO up in the northeast, Alberta. The STARS transport physician, interestingly, provides medical and procedural guidance on every critical call, regardless of the mode of transport. So this is with ground ambulance, rotary wing, and fixed wing. They'll do things like while that patient is being transported, they'll schedule things like a CAT scan, a neurosurgeon, or the cardiac cath lab, so that time is being saved. Precious time can be the difference between life and death for that patient. The H145 is a generational investment, so we're very proud to say that this campaign is complete. We have all 6 bases are H145 operational, so in total 10 helicopters that are airborne intensive care unit environments. We're very happy to also say that last year we celebrated 20 years of having night vision goggle capability, and with more than 50% of the calls occurring at night, that's essential for us. Yes, so all of the 10 helicopters are completely paid for now. We were able to sell off the BK117 fleet to complete that capital campaign. So we're pretty proud of that. Let's take a quick look inside the H145. It is an airborne intensive care unit environment. We'll take a look at some of the highly specialized equipment inside. Starting with the iStat lab, you can see it is the size of a cell phone. So with a couple drops of blood and within 2 minutes, we can have test results for hemoglobin, blood gases, and electrolytes, which is very essential for the crew when they're monitoring multiple pain management drugs in a trauma patient. Also on board, we carry 2 units of universal blood. Actually, we increased to 4 in 2019. So we're the first helicopter EMS program in North America to carry universal blood on board. This is the difference between life and death for many patients. The video laryngoscope is also on board. It's a game changer in intubation. So as you can see, the crew member can view the trachea right on the screen there. So that is essential when they're trying to navigate difficult airways in trauma patients, burn victims, or somebody who might have been crushed on impact. Next, the handheld ultrasound also provides rapid test results for things like collapsed lungs, internal bleeding, heart abnormalities, and even fetal complications in pregnant mothers. And now, the way that the helicopters have Bluetooth, integrated Wi-Fi, and satellite connectivity, again, those test results are able to be sent to the receiving doctors at the receiving hospitals by the transport physician so that they can expedite a treatment plan while that patient is en route. We also are world-renowned critical care experts. So our crew members undergo mandatory training each year, up to 200 hours. So that is either through online textbook training or simulation training. We have clinical educators at each base who put the crew members through rigorous, complex, distinct cases so that the crew members get exposed to all kinds of situations because they must be prepared for the unthinkable. So they also do in-field training so that they can be prepared, like I said, for inclement weather while taking into consideration patient vulnerability in these high consequence situations. We also do training with Chain of Survival Partners, which is being revamped right now. So we'll have more on that next year, perhaps, when we come back. Right now, though, fire departments, essential for your fire departments that may be recruiting more volunteers or have some there that have not had the landing zone training, because we're very thankful that your fire departments help us land STARS when we land at a scene. So they can go onto stars.ca and request online landing zone training so that they can have that confidence and those extra skills in helping us land.
We're also very proud of our crew members in the fact that, we are world renowned in critical care. There is an international air medical transport conference each year. This is a worldwide conference where helicopter EMS programs from around the world come and send a team of 2 to compete against each other throughout the world. STARS has participated for 21 years now. We host our own internal competition to allow our crew members and come out with the final crew members, team of 2 to represent STARS internationally at this very rigorous competition. They must triage multiple patients in the most inconceivable critical situations. They are graded on decision-making, on their timing, and the patient outcomes, utilizing the human patient simulators or the high-fidelity mannequins. To give you kind of an idea of what happened this last year in October, for the scenario, for our crew members, it was head-on collision. The father was ejected from the vehicle with a massive head trauma. The mother was in the front seat going into cardiac arrest, and she was pregnant. And then the child also had head trauma in the back seat. So they're a team of 2 managing all 3 of these critical patients. And then at the conference center, the lights went out. This was not planned, and they, for almost 2 hours, had to manage their 3 patients in the dark. This is the type of scenarios that they are up against. We're very proud of our crews that all 21 years that STARS has participated, we have been top 3 in the world all 21 years. And out of those 21 years, we have taken first place 7 times. We are bringing your residents the highest level of critical care. So in closing, I'd like to say, STARS was born out of necessity. This is Kelly Waldron. She was the very first patient flown by STARS. She was a critically ill twin in southern Alberta that needed rapid transport. So we were called on that fateful day, December 1st, 1985. Little did anyone know that that particular mission was going to radically change critical care delivery in Alberta. Today, we have flown more than 55,000 missions. More importantly, at no cost to the patient. For almost 40 years, we have remained a charitable organization, so anyone has access to STARS when they may be experiencing the worst day of their entire lives. And we want to keep it that way. So it is very much a united effort. A life is literally saved every day. We are averaging 10 missions per day across our 6 bases. A life is literally saved every day, but it is partnership that has made it possible for almost 40 years. So our request to you, we thank you very much for your time. We thank you for your continued community support through your volleyball tournament that's very well renowned and known in its own right. They've continued to stand by our side. We very much appreciate that. But we would really welcome the town of Fort Macleod if you would join in a regional partnership with your MD and your other neighboring municipalities. So our request to you is at the minimum $2 per capita in conjunction with your council term for this year and next year. We would really welcome the fact that we're uniting the entire province in an effort to ensure that everyone has access to STARS. Thank you for your time.
On behalf of our council, I wanted to say thank you for your presentation. It was very well put together and well done. Thank you for what you and your team do as well. The one life a day is hard to comprehend, so it's a lot that goes into making that happen. Does any council member have something they wish to ask? Clarifying questions? Councilor Monteith?
I presume the older helicopters didn't have nearly as much of the functions that you're able to do now. Is that correct?
A lot of the different equipment that we've continued to have, it's much more a more technologically advanced equipment now than what we previously had. It's pretty much the big sister to the previous model that we had as well, but more fuel efficiency, a little bit larger range because of the fuel efficiency. The pilots say that we are getting about an extra 30 minutes flight time, so a little bit increase that way.
Well, I'm just wondering, because by going to the newer machines, our landing pad became obsolete. So now instead of landing right beside the hospital, that'll land out of the airport and ambulance them in and whatever. So I realize there's a trade-off, but that seems like a fairly big trade-off.
Okay, I appreciate that question, really. I would like to clarify, though, it is not because of the new machine or size. They are comparable in every way, shape, and form, and weight as well, just 2 feet longer in the tail. So it's very much comparable. I did talk with the Director of Flight Operations prior to coming because I wanted to have as much information for you as I could. In 2017, Alberta Health Services did a review of all community helipads in Alberta. And so from this review, it came back that there were several communities that either needed a complete new helipad, not because of the size of the helicopter, but because of upgrades and things. Some of them just required certain upgrades. Others required a whole new pad because it had not been maintained and it was no longer up to the new Transport Canada regulations. So with that, your helipad was one of those that was deemed that it was not up to spec for the newer Transport Canada regulations. So with that as well, there is a helipad site committee within Alberta Health Services, who our Director of Flight Operations also sits on that committee. So there is 3 points to a helipad ranking criteria. So number 1, for Alberta Health Services helipads across the province, you have to have a minimum 10 critical interfacility transfers per year. So we're not quite meeting that one. You have to be greater than 45 minutes from tertiary care. So you've got that one covered. And you have to be a minimum 10 minutes or more away from your nearest airport. So for town of McLeod, as far as Alberta Health Services ranking criteria, you're not meeting, your hospital needs are not meeting that as far as the critical interfacility transfers, which is why Alberta Health Services decided to close your helipad based on the ranking criteria. Now, I've had the opportunity over the years, and I've worked with several different other communities as well, on when they did not meet the criteria, that they were able to work with Alberta Health Services, take on that it would be a community-funded helipad to do upgrades, or I'll give you an example for Innisfail. They did a 5-year plan. I started working with them in 2017. They did a 5-year plan, and they were not able to get on side with Alberta Health Services, but they had a piece of land across the street from the hospital that was town land. So they returned their tennis courts into a helipad on a 5-year plan. So there are other opportunities. Like, I would encourage you to start with a conversation to Alberta Health Services, because we as STARS, we understand all the challenges that you as your community faces, we face the same challenges too. There's lots of different challenges because of resource availability. You know, that can be a mitigating factor as well. Helipads are really essential as we move forward for generations to come. They are an investment in your community. They alleviate the fact that you could have cost savings just from the sheer fact that we can land, take the patient, get them back to tertiary care. There are no call-out charges. We do not have to call your fire department out. We do not have to have ground ambulance service, you know, when there is a helipad co-located with your hospital. There's lots of other reasoning behind, you know, when you're handling a trauma patient, the less times you have to do multiple transfers, the better for that patient, especially if that patient is intubated. So we're looking at cost savings, we're looking at mitigating the resource shortage, because then we are not requiring your only ground ambulance to be tied to us, right? We don't have to call any of those resources. We will just, and we have a better opportunity. The statistics show in lots of communities that when they have a helipad, we are a much better resource for that community as well. And the statistics go up in the fact that we are be able to just come back and forth easily, not tie up other resources, be better equipped to be able to benefit your local medical practitioners in many ways. So lots of things to think about on, you know, it's a big undertaking, but on a 5-year plan, you can start to look at different ways to identify. And I've worked with many communities across the province now that have finally, they are celebrating the fact that they have a helipad. So if we can be a resource to help you in any way, please ask.
Thank you for that. Answers your question, Councillor Monteith?
It does. I'm not happy, but it does.
I appreciate that.
Any other comments, questions? I was going to mention that sometimes there's the misconception that fundraising only covers the operational costs of when STARS is not in the air. And STARS in the air is covered by HS or what have you. Is that a misconception?
That's a good question as well. So when we were looking at the financial slide, right? So the $15 million block funding that we are hopeful to secure another 10-year agreement on, that is just block funding for no matter how many missions we fly. So that's strictly part of the operational cost, not including those other aspects that I explained. That's where the fundraising component is to help offset that. So part of fundraising is the other half of the operational costs, as well as the Link Center, the training and education, and the administration costs. So a lot involved in fundraising as far as, you know, and then again, the lottery, you know, usually nets 10 million. So that helps to offset that other $15 million of operational costs as well, leaving 5 million more to add to everything else. So block funding comes from, it's strictly for operational from Alberta Health Services, but no matter how many missions we fly. And each year, our mission rate continues to increase. You know, last year, across our 6 bases, we flew over 3,500 missions. That's just last year alone. And usually half of that is always in Alberta.
Right, so of those 3,500 missions, there's no revenue to STARS as a result of those missions, is that right? It's all funded through fundraising?
That's right. Other than the 15 million block funding that we receive from Alberta Health Services, it's all fundraising.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think there is still a bit of a misconception, and maybe this is from years past, but that AHS covered the actual flight cost.
No,
Okay,
it's just block funding.
interesting.
No,
Okay, very
there
good.
is no additional funding or sending out any
Okay,
invoices or anything like that. It's strictly 15 million block funding.
interesting. Okay. That's good to know. All right. If there is no other comments or questions, we will consider this under our next agenda item under considerations of the delegations. So I want to thank you on behalf of the town for coming out today and presenting what STARS does and how we can support.
Well,
Thank you.
We certainly hope that we have an opportunity to continue to work with your council and bring you an annual update each year of statistical information for your area and anything new at STARS.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. We brought you a new calendar and one for your fire department too, please, if you would pass it along.
Very good. Thank you. Feel free to stay until after the consideration of the, but that's your call. Thank you. All right, under our delegations, we had a second delegation tonight, and we'd like to welcome Seven Generations Indigenous Housing Group and Corey Thomas and your team. So feel free to, sure. All right, thank you.
Okay, I should be fine. My name is Corey Thomas. I grew up just a little bit a ways from here in the town of Pincher Creek. I am working with the Blood Tribe and the Confederacy to put together affordable housing for the province of Alberta. I met Cynthia probably 6 to 7 months ago. She has been working with her team and her group to put together a rent-to-own program for the province as well. And I thought our two initiatives lined up really nicely. My initiative, our initiatives together, we designated 26 cities and towns to be able to roll out our initiative. We work with the federal government, which is the CMHC, the provincial government, and also municipalities to be able to bring affordable housing units to the province. Actually, what we'll do is, if you just want to share a little bit on Seven Generations.
Hi, my name's Cynthia Rain. I'm from Treaty 6 territory, just outside of Edmonton, right around Waldman area. Just to introduce me, I come from there. I've been working with the federal government for about 23 plus years in 2 different sectors, mainly with Solicitor General and then with Indigenous Services Canada. So I ended off there. And I really learned a lot from working as a civil servant for the federal government. And a lot of it was just to be able to work and see how the government deals with our Indigenous people right across Canada. Housing, capital, and infrastructure was the area that I worked in quite a bit. So it gave me a chance and opportunity to be able to work with all of the First Nations here in Alberta. I was able to work with chief and councils, housing departments, public works, and be able to just get a good understanding of each nation, you know. Coming away from that, when I did retire, one of the areas that was the housing off reserve. Because of federal funding is only for on reserve. And so the members that are off reserve, they don't get funded by their nation. A lot of that money through Treasury Board is filtered through CMHC, or otherwise it's just over to the provinces because they go by your stats that are submitted that create a lot of your provincial budgets, you know, that come on down. So for me, I said to myself, if there was anything that I would like to do, I'd really like to focus on a rent-to-own program. With that being said, I approached the Alberta government, and I was able to get some money to do a feasibility study. From this study, it told me a lot of things on the nation that I did it on. It told me that we have probably more than half of our people, they live off reserve. You know, they, in that One Nation alone, they put 6 million into the rental revenue here in Alberta. It also told me that, you know, we have over 343 families that are off reserve, as well as, you know, the rent. With a lot of our people, I think our oldest renter, she's like in her 70s and she's worked for the federal government herself. She's rented for over 40 years. She's paid over $1 million in rent and still doesn't own anything today. So, you know, when you take those numbers and you roll it right across, you know, the 46 First Nations here in Alberta, it tells you something. Just in Alberta alone, just based on StatsCan and the statistics, it clearly shows that a lot of the Indigenous people, in particular First Nations, are leaving the First Nations and coming to places like yours and other cities, other urban centers, and that's just because of housing, because of employment, you know, for many other reasons, you know, to be able to get those services. I think in Alberta alone, we have about 126,000 First Nations members, and of that, we have probably about, I'm gonna say about 86,000 of them are off reserve here in Alberta, which is a pretty big number, you know, so not a lot are staying on the reserve. So with that being said, I was able to kind of focus on One Nation and put together an affordable rent-to-own program. And that took me probably about 4 to 5 years to lobby with the Alberta government, CMHC, you know, and work with them to really take into consideration that Indigenous people housing off reserve is really needed, and the willingness to pay is there for the people because they need to pay for a roof over their head. So with that being said, they supported me on a project, and that was with the Paul Band project in Edmonton for the 24 homes on the rent to own, and Minister Pond was part of that announcement that it was on Edmonton. So it was 24 units there. My role in that was basically just to put it together, you know, get the funding, put it all together, get it approved, and then hand it off to the nation for them to complete. So that is what I did. Going forward, I said to myself, I guess, you know, we really need to take a look at all Indigenous people, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. You know, it's not just with One Nation, it goes right across the board. So, you know, with all of the knowledge and all of the experience I had, even working as a civil servant, kind of turning everything inside out to be able to understand and say, well, you know what, we need to do something about this, you know, and we meet about it, talk about it, but, you know, I said to myself, we need to put this together. So with doing that, I was able to meet up with Corey here, and I explained to him what my overall focus was on. You know, it was to be able to help support Indigenous people. A lot of funding is made available for Indigenous housing right now. The federal government and their rollout of the agreements, you know, their business plan that they set out, you know, for Indigenous people from 2015 to 2030, you know, tells us that they really want the Indigenous peoples, particularly First Nations, to be self-governing and self-sufficient and be part of the municipalities and everything. So with that being said, this is what I've been focused on and putting together. We have a good team of professionals, people in all areas, you know, from proposal writing to investments. We have a good finance team, and then we have Corey's team as well on the construction side and putting together the viability assessments. For me, one of the biggest things working with the government, and it's like anything else, you need land. You know, land is something that you need before you can even put in a proposal. You know, so working, you know, in getting land. And I just wanted to make mention of this, you know, with that project I worked on, I was able to, you know, be able to use and apply, you know, with the provincial money to buy that land, you know, in the city of Edmonton for that particular nation. So I always believe that there's, anything is possible. You know, we can't say it's not possible. I'm, you know, myself, I'm the kind of person to really, you know, let's get it done and let's put it out there. It's all about finding solutions, you know, it's about making it work. And that's kind of the way that, you know, I take a look at all these projects. But enough of that. And I think some of it here, I'll just go through our PowerPoint. A lot of what we focused on was trying to share everything that we're doing. So our group, like I said, focuses on, you know, Indigenous urbanization. You know, we want to create these real estate opportunities on a rent to own. With our current team that we have, we do have like real estate side of what we're doing. So we're working on an RTO and a rent to rate, two models for the people. So and this is kind of what we focused on there too. So we want to develop these opportunities for the members that are off reserve. Our vision, basically to build a sustainable economic system for the Indigenous people off reserve. Our overall mission is to restore hope through housing. The overall strategy is to partner with expertise and whatever resources. And to me, I really believe in partnerships, you know, with whoever we work with. You know, I really want to develop some good partnerships and promote our Indigenous culture, you know, by building these units. And a lot of our people, when they do leave their First Nations, they're disconnected from their culture and their people. So, you know, we want to bring that back by, you know, with the Indigenous communities that are within urban centers, they're a community in itself. I think we're all very well aware of the Indian Act. That's the federal government's act and what they created for the Indigenous people. And, you know, we take a look at the poor health, incarceration rates are high, unemployment, lower levels of income, same thing with education, higher rates of suicide, and inadequate housing conditions. I think probably many of you have read stories where a lot of these homes, you know, you have anywhere from 10 to 20 people living in a 3-bedroom house, you know, so they're really overcrowded, these homes. So some of the statistics that we put together, we have a data team that specifically focuses on Indigenous stats right across Canada, and they've gone to many platforms, everything from StatsCan to ISC, CMHC, AFN, anywhere where they can pull the data. And this is kind of what they put together for us. And you know, just focusing on Fort Macleod here, you know, they just showed us, you know, the population that you have here. Which is the 3,185, your overall pop, and then the Indigenous population is 570 people, which is about 18%. Your total households, 1,325, and it's 210 of Indigenous people here. The Indigenous renters, it's 30% of the rental market. Your overall housing rental that they pay is about $1,220. The overall total amount owned is 1,025, and you have 120 Indigenous owners here. And this kind of goes to the overall population percent within Fort Macleod, as well as the overall market by percent. Same thing, the housing within Fort Macleod. One is the population, the other one is the housing. And same thing with the tenure and total household, as well as your overall Indigenous household and dwellings. These were some of the statistics that we've taken just to show you the comparison for Indigenous people. When you do a comparison from 2016 all the way to 2021, and the federal government likes to update all of their statistics every 4 years, so they're updating them. You know, and we did a comparison from, you know, bringing these out on the overall participation amongst individuals from 25 to 64 in the labor force. And you can see the variation from First Nations people on reserve to First Nations people off reserve, and then the overall comparison of non-Indigenous people. Same thing here with high school diplomas going to school. It goes to show as well too that we have more people graduating from high school that are off reserve in comparison to on reserve, as well as your non-Indigenous people. The overall living conditions in each dwelling, they need major repairs, and we did a comparison as well with First Nations people on reserve being very high. As of 2021, 37.3, and with off reserve, you can see it's 12.3, and the non-Indigenous 5.7. Mental health, really big concern and issue, you know, for our Indigenous people as well within our First Nations. And we did, you know, pull out whatever statistics that we could find, you know, in comparison to First Nations people, to non-Indigenous people. And these are the numbers that we pulled out of from StatsCan. So this is the CMHC, the housing continuum. You know, they talked about everything from homelessness to emergency shelters, transitional housing, supportive housing, community housing, affordable housing, right down to market housing. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. This one here.
Okay, so this is kind of our concept. This is how it runs through. We do everything from single-family homes up to commercial. And it would work different for your community than it would in a larger community like Lethbridge or Calgary or Edmonton. We're able to do deliver any facet in any of those construction needs. This is kind of our affordable housing ecosystem. This is what we would present for like Edmonton or Calgary. It's kind of the full gamut where we would have transitional housing, like affordable housing. We would have actually community spots for our partners for education, daycares, health providers, and you know, like small grocery stores and training facilities. So, and then we'd have cultural centers as well. So what we would do in this ecosystem is we would have it would be pre-planned so that it would be able to everyone that lives there would be able to take part in any organization or facility that would they would require, from childcare facilities, elders housing, straight down to green spaces, you know, basketball courts, stuff like that. So the advantages of having this kind of wraparound or the full continuum in the housing, we'd be able to promote Indigenous culture, and then there'd be lots of community sports, our support, and for all ages, that will do education, wellness, choice for homes for Indigenous people, rent-to-own program, and then affordable rentals as well too. And then we would also, with this ecosystem, would be able to create employment through the construction in order to raise possibilities for self-sustainability. So what we do is for our affordable housing, it goes up from 3% to 30%. So in reduction in the market rent. And then, so we also are able to take it from the property from raw dirt all the way to through the construction gambit, and also be able to turn it over to the homeowners or renters and also do the management side of the operation. So we'll be able to take it from dirt to completion and do the management side as well. Yeah, so we'll oversee each part of the system, all the way to home ownership. And the phase one, what we do is we look to acquire land. Phase two would be develop and construction. Development also includes permitting and design. And then phase three is the delivery of the units and the facilities and the management that comes from that. So what we've applied for is almost $4 million in funding for startup. That's from the federal government and a couple of different arms of the federal government, and we're also looking for grants from the provincial government to start this process. So our project costs for the full housing continuum are $42 million. That's not really concerning for Fort Macleod because we would be doing a different system. What we would most likely be doing is just we would start with affordable housing and plus the rent-to-own model, and then once those are fulfilled, then we'll do like probably childcare, and that would be probably the end for Fort Macleod. So what we're looking for is land funding through grants, and we're going to be doing our rent-to-own program and set up partnerships with any facilities that we need to that would be relevant to what we would be bringing here to Fort Macleod. And that's it.
Thank you for the presentation, Corey, and I believe your first name was Cynthia. Thank you. We appreciate you coming to the town. So I guess the ask is probably a little bit unclear at this time, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So what we would do is I have been in contact with Anthony to see what kind of possibilities there would be, whether it's through purchase of land or donation of land. What we would do is we would identify a place that we would like to be. We would take that spot and do a preliminary drawing. And so you'd be able to figure out, we would figure out, how many units we would be able to do, the consistency of the units between affordable housing and the rent-to-own model, and then also the different variation of what we would do, like whether it's like a standalone house or a fourplex or duplex or some row housing, and also the what would be inside of those units, like whether it's a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 1-bedroom. And then what we would do is we would come back with that proposal, and then that would probably be where we would open up discussions, because it would give a better understanding for you guys to be able to make a decision of, hey, is this what we want, right? And then you'd be able to bring it to the town in a forum, I would imagine, if those are correct steps.
Okay. Do you have a rough idea of how many housing units you're thinking based on the stats you have?
Yeah, so our initial pilot project would be 24 units. So we just don't know if, how many standalone houses, how many row houses, stuff like that. But we would typically like to stay away from apartment complexes. So if you have the space, we would rather just build nicer units.
And I imagine if you did, say, 24 units and childcare and transitional, you'd like that in a bit of a community setting, correct?
Correct, but we wouldn't, for Fort Macleod, we wouldn't be looking at anything transitional. So that would be something that you would come to us at a later date and saying that, hey, could you look at transitional housing? Then that's when we would be able to put that into our ecosystem. So, but at this time, what we would be looking at is just affordable housing, fair market rent, and the rent-to-own model.
So I think today the ask is more to continue the conversation, and if council's open to continuing the conversation and dialoguing between the parties to see what might be an option.
Yeah, so this is just an exploratory time where we can sit at the same table and say,
Sure.
hey, you know what, this is our need. And then we'll say, you know what, this is what we can do for you.
Okay.
This is the funding that we can pull from the federal government, the provincial government, and how do we make it work? Right, because essentially that's all we're here for,
Yeah.
is to be able to facilitate those needs that you do have. So we work with Indigenous, also work with the Inuit, and also with the Métis. So it's not just specific to First Nations. Or, did I say that right? Okay, sounds good.
Any other questions, comments for the presenters? No further questions at this time, but we'll definitely be discussing with our administration in the future and in the near future to see what avenues we have to continue the conversation. Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. And Corey, we appreciate you coming out tonight. All right. Thank you, everyone. Tonight we do not have any public hearings, so we'll move on to the consideration of the delegations we had tonight. We'll consider the one and we'll defer the second delegation to administration to perhaps a committee of the whole at some point. Yep. All right. Thank you. Regarding the STARS delegation, does administration have any thoughts, comments on how to proceed with that discussion? Or does any council member want to make a motion? Or do we want to defer this to a committee of the whole discussion for more in-depth discussion?
The one piece that I did want to, in the ask in their presentation, talks about $2 per capita, which is pretty straightforward. They did use kind of some different language when they were presenting, $2 per capita with regional partnership. And so anything, right, if there's anything like as far as our relationship with our MD or things like that, I think we'd probably like to just keep it simple and do our own thing, which I'm sure they would accept willingly, but
Yeah.
I didn't ask the question about what they were getting at by regional partnership or just that the whole region is supporting them.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the MD and the communities within the MD all support, so then we get a star, basically, as we are a region that is a supporter, a full supporter, not just part. So, anyone inclined to make a motion on the $2 per capita at this point, or do you want to discuss it some more of the finance? Because I know we have our budget cycle coming up, and now would be the time to get it in if we do want it in. Otherwise, we'll miss the budget cycle, because I think that's coming up early April. Is that correct, Chris? To committee of the whole next week would work. Okay. So perhaps a motion then from council to defer the STARS discussion to the committee of the whole for further discussion. Councillor Anninger makes the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, called to question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Regarding the FCFM conference under unfinished business, everyone has had a chance to review the calendar, the topics, the costs. Does anyone have any comments on how to proceed on this? Hesitations, absolute no's, some yeses. Councillor Henniger?
I want to go to this so bad, but the 150th is a few short weeks after that, and we have had a lot of planning.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's after. So that's been a consideration just with, for example, today we had 5 groups come to our meeting. And so there's a lot of busyness happening around town, and genuinely 3 weeks away, there's going to be a lot of planning in place in June. So that's a little just, my brain focuses there a little bit.
All the planning will be done by then, right?
Yeah, you hope. You throw a curveball in there, you know? That's
Yeah.
our town, but that's how we run and we
but
do
it's
great
how we
things. So that's just been a little bit of a consideration for
Sure,
June.
you're out.
I'm tentative, but I think my energy's better suited on making sure this is a great event with our committee.
Any other thoughts? I think Councillor Wolfson indicated interest in going. Councillor Monteith? Okay, that's a hard no.
It's because I'm not going, because he doesn't want to go, because I'm not going.
Councillor Fox? I don't think I'm available. Okay, Councillor Puches? CEO Burdette? Thoughts?
On whether or not I'm going, I would
Yeah.
go. As it's been customary for me to attend with council, I don't know if that's just kind of a more supervisory role. Just kidding.
You've done a poor job if that's what your goal was.
No, I would be more than happy to attend. I'm not as involved with the 150th planning. I mean, Lisa's doing an exceptional job with the committee there, but yeah, I would be willing to attend as well. I've heard they're quite valuable, and I've talked to some other CAOs and kind of the value that they get from these, and they say it is a valuable experience.
All right, this indication is 4 individuals then. Is anyone prepared to make a motion for up to 4 members of council or administration to attend the FCM in Calgary? Councillor Henniger makes the motion for up to 4. Is that adequate, Councillor? Right? Any questions on the motion? Debate, discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Willow 2024 membership discussion, and our Director of Finance, Chris Holbeck, would like to speak to this.
Thank you, Mayor Fader. Good evening, Council. So before you tonight, as we come ever so close to 2024 budget, is the 2024 memberships. We try to get this list approved annually by Council, just to make sure that you're aware of what groups that we do have memberships with, and to make sure you're in favor of it. It's a little bit late for this year because we've already membership reminders come in January and we just pay them and move on. But just wanted you to know which ones we are planning on registering with again for 2024. And we have paid 4 of the 6 so far, and the other 2 come later in the calendar year. They will bill us later on. So there's no huge changes. No new ones, just some existing ones. So we just need a motion from council to approve the listing as presented for 2024. Thank you.
Anyone prepared to make a motion as per the recommendation? Councillor Bolsonaro makes the motion to approve. Any questions on any of the membership organizations? Concerns, debate? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Willow Creek Regional Waste Management Services requisition, or Director of Finance again.
Thank you, Mayor Fader. This is also a budgetary item for 2024. Annually, we are requisitioned by both the Willow Creek Regional Landfill Commission and the Willow Creek Foundation, which is the seniors foundation in our municipality. So we have received the letter from our waste requisition. Just to let you know, there's no increase for tipping fees for 2024, and the metric ton charge has not neither changed either. So there could be some difference in volumes, but that's neither here nor there right now. We budget just based on the letter that we get from the commission. So what we are requesting tonight is that you refer this requisition to 2024 budget. I've already got it in there for discussion at the next committee of the whole, and that you approve their financial statements for the 2023 year end. Thank you.
Very well. Anyone prepared to make a motion as per the recommendation? Councillor Poitras makes the motion
What's the motion again?
to refer the requisition to the 2024 operating budget and to accept the financial report as information.
Just how many of us have looked at the financial statement in any detail?
I think it's accepting as information. It's not like we're approving it. Is how the recommendation reads. We wouldn't be the approving body anyways. Any further discussion or questions? I believe Councillor Wolstenholme, if you had any concerns, you'd make sure we were made aware of them, correct? All right. Call it to question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving to item 3, gopher control policy, and we'll ask our Director of Operations, Wally Ola, to speak to this.
Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, Council. I want to present to you our gopher control policy. The essence of this policy is to create guidelines for gopher control measures in town and to formalize our pest control measures as regards gophers in town. We want to utilize the services of licensed and certified pest control services so that they can help us to control these pests in early spring of each year. And we want to itemize the control locations for all these gophers so that people in town can know where we want to apply these gopher controls. And at the same time, we are in the process of researching other safe and environmentally compliant measures so that in subsequent years we can apply other measures that would be safe without risks to the town and the residents of the town.
All right, thank you very much. So the recommendation is to accept the gopher control policy. Do we have to approve or accept as information? I believe it's accept as information, correct? Anyone prepared to make that motion? Councillor Wolstenholme makes the motion on the gopher control policy. Anyone have any questions on the policy? Councillor Henniger?
It's only because I've seen it where there's a sign that goes up and then we've been told, don't always look at social media. But I get it. If you have a dog and your children are walking by and you see gopher poison and things like that. I'm just wondering how we can mitigate that in advance and what your plans are. If you are getting rid of these pests that are so fun, how are we going to be very loud about that so that people are aware of it and it doesn't become secondhand nature where they take a photo of a sign, they weren't aware of it in advance. That's just what I've seen in the past years when we've done some sort of gopher control or there's been like a poison somewhere, even outside of town. People are not always fond of that. So I'm just wondering what the plan is for signage and things like that. I know it's just the policy right now, but if that could be at all disclosed.
As usual, we want to make sure we inform the residents of the town ahead of time for them to be aware of these locations and the time so that people can avoid those areas. At the same time, we've been reassured by all these licensed service providers that they have better ways of administering these poisons to the gophers. and they're trying to bait them even before they come outside of their holes. So the timing is very essential. So they want to time it in such a way that they'll be able to get these gophers when they're still very hungry coming out of the winter season, so they can eat all this baits while they're still in the hole. So the pest control will be administered to them inside the hole, far inside the holes, so as to mitigate the effect of the safety of the residents of the town.
Is there a way we can change the signage so that it doesn't read as a threat? Sometimes I think as soon as they see gopher control happening, and people automatically assume there's a risk. So I'm just wondering if there's a way we can communicate that it's less of a risk, no risk.
I think as there's a certain requirement, if depending on the process that we're using to control the gophers, that we will be required to put that out there, and so there should be some awareness of that risk. I mean, we can definitely review to see what language is appropriate, but I mean, if you are using any type of poison, I'd rather know too much than too little, right? While the controls being taken to reduce the gopher numbers, but we can review it, see if there's a softer way to warn people.
Have we ever thought of putting a URL code on the sign so that people can just take a quick camera picture and read up on what the town's actually doing, so it's not an assumption that's right away made? Something like that, I think, just takes away because otherwise they don't know where to look for it. So now it's it's on your phone, they can read it. It's a thought. All right, motions on the floor. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Motion to approve, so call it to question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to Regional Stormwater Management Plan, and we'll invite our Director of Operations to speak to this as well.
Good evening, Council, once again. Our consultants, MPE, they've provided us with a draft report of their stormwater management plan for the region. It encompasses the MD of Willow Creek, number 26, and the town of Fort McLeod. The focus of the study of the report is to identify the existing flooding and drainage issues within the town and our environment, to assess the capacity of our regional and local drainage infrastructure, and to recommend improvements to reduce flood risks. The modeling results indicate risk of flooding in many parts of the town, and they identified that the flooding in the more developed parts of the town is due to undersized infrastructures, and they have made recommendations based on the metrics on how to design new developments in town, especially for the McLeod Landing subdivision. So they've made various recommendations on how to increase the size of our drainage pipes, how to increase the capacity of our outfalls into the Old Man River, and other mitigating factors to ensure that we do not have any flooding risk in town. And with that also comes a bill and a cost estimate that the town may have to consider going forward to include in our budget. They've itemized it in different categories and priorities, from high to medium to low, which we can look into going forward in our annual budgets. And so this report, the draft report, is for us to review, to look into, and to process pending the time we have the final report, and to adopt it at some point to ensure that we mitigate all the flood risks in town.
Thank you for the report. It's an extensive report with a lot of detail. It's kind of fun to read to see where the ponding may or could or should pond if there is a storm event, where culverts, where whatever is going to be undersized or non-existent. I'm not sure exactly what would be approving or accepting. Like, does this mean that this report has all been, council's good with the reports, or what is it exactly you wanted council to be able to review and approve?
Number one, we want this as information for council. And number two, we want council to know that the final report will be out before the end of this week, which would circulate again. And number three, to prepare our minds that the flood risk to the town of Fort McLeod is very real and it is very imminent, and that we should include this in our budgets going forward year on year. We have an estimate of close to $22 million. As the director of operations, I'm not saying that we should put this in our budget for next year, but we have to plan ahead to ensure that all these risks are mitigated year on year. We can have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, so that we have this from the high priority to the medium to the low. We ensure that we put this as part of our budgets every year going forward.
It may be prudent at some point, whether it's in capital planning, to have this kind of gone through with council so we can better understand what all the areas and risks could or are. I'm not fully thinking I understand it all, but some of the areas where I see flooding don't show flooding on the map, but then when I look at the priority list, it shows that all the costs are really on the south side of the tracks. So that must mean that that's where the bigger priorities lie. Is that correct?
Yes. So I'll review the final report, and I'll do a slide that will be simpler than what's here, and we'll be able to show the different parts of town that are prone to the flood risk, that are imminent, and that are real, so that in plain language I can explain those metrics and explain what are in this report. But going through the draft report, I can assure you that the flood risk is imminent, including the fact that I've been receiving calls within the last few weeks of people trying to intimate me on the flooding issues in their area before the spring and summer months come in. So yeah, as a new person in town, I can tell you that people have started informing me about the flood risks in their property, on their properties and in their environments.
Okay, very good. Anyone prepared to make a motion to accept the draft regional stormwater management plan pending the submission of the final report by MPE? Councillor Fox makes the motion. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Yeah, I look forward to a bit of a more simplified presentation to understand kind of what our priorities should be. And yeah, look forward to that. So we'll call it the question. If there's no other comments, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to item 5, Jumbo Solar Project Response Letter. Anthony Burdett, our CEO, would like to introduce this to us.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As we have drafted and produced a letter with the MD of Willow Creek with some of the concerns, and Neon has sent us a response to said letter. And so the motion before you, or the recommendation before you tonight, is that you accept the response as information from Neon regarding the Jumbo Solar Project as information. Just wanted to highlight a few pieces. I'm not sure if everyone had the opportunity to go through the letter. Some of the main pieces, or I guess the highlights that I'd like to touch on. The first piece that they focus on is the economic benefit for the area upon construction, with an estimated 500 people being employed for the, I think it was a couple of years that it takes to build. Another thing that they're looking to benefit the area for residents within 500 meters. 500 meters is less, that's less than 1/4 section away. Just for reference, those residents are offered rooftop solar systems to kind of help them with their energy costs and their green initiatives. They have referenced the Fort Macleod Environment Committee in their letter, as the Fort Macleod Environment Committee did recently put out a survey. We actually went through that survey with council. I believe there were 60 some individuals who filled out that survey, and so they referenced some of the details there. Because of that survey, a majority of those 67 people were interested in renewable energy projects. They mentioned tax revenue. That would be pertinent to the MD, not us, as we will not see any tax revenue from this project. When it comes to the location, they really focus on how this is an ideal location, and if not them, it's going to be somebody else who comes in for this project, because it is such a fantastic location, as they state. They did talk about this in our meeting with them. Some of those details is close to the existing transmission lines, relatively flat. This land is not class 1 or 2, as we would have read in the recent communication from the province, that they won't allow, or they, soil levels 1 and 2 are to be avoided. Yeah, and then obviously just being here in Southern Alberta, the solar power is quite high because of our sunny winters and summers. And obviously they already have landowner consent. They acknowledge the visual concern, and are hopeful that although it will be very visible, those visiting will recognize the commitment the area has to renewable energy. And then they go on to identify that within our intermunicipal development plan that we have listed there, the discussion of solar energy, right, that we talk about in that IDP, that we talk about through municipal cooperation, we can, find opportunities for solar. And I don't think it's ever been said that the MD or the town are opposed to solar, but in the letter it was directly attributed to this location specifically. Yeah, a few other interesting items was they are using bifacial panels, which means that they can produce electricity from the bottom. So when the sun bounces off the snow and hits the back of the panel, apparently it can also produce electricity, which I thought that was a neat little tidbit of information. And as we already knew, they're tracking the sun, so they will move throughout the day, and that they are using a high efficiency panel. Another mitigating factor that they mentioned in the letter is that they potentially intend on grazing sheep between the solar panels, as it is 1,500 acres of solar panels. I think, to mitigate the loss of agricultural land, because I think that's in direct response to the provincial letter stating that, where possible, finding mitigations that allow it to still be used agriculturally. But those are some of the highlights, some of the points of information that I found from their response letter. If council has any questions or comments, I'll gladly take them. Otherwise, we can just accept this as information.
Okay. Would it be prudent to also have some more discussion with the MD to see where they plan to, and if we're going to coordinate any further discussions after this?
Yeah, I think that doesn't have to necessarily be with this, tied to this response, but the MD has invited us to participate in intervener status with the AUC. And so that, yeah, I mean, further discussions I think are prudent.
So you're okay with just a motion to accept this information for now? Anyone prepared to make that motion? Councilor Monteith makes the motion. Any further discussion on the letter? Questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Alberta municipalities keep political parties out of local elections. I'm not sure what the ask is on this for us, but CEO Burdette, did you want to speak to this?
Absolutely. We received communication from Alberta municipalities, and we have had some discussion, I believe, Committee of the Whole, a while back with our council, just on this topic. There had been made mention from the Alberta government about the potential of adding political parties to local elections and local representatives. Alberta municipalities is quite against it. And in the Alberta municipalities, having polled all of the municipalities in the province, the majority have shown that they are against the implementation of political parties at the local municipal level. So Alberta municipalities does give us some, I guess, potential actions that could be taken if council is of the same opinion to keep local politics free of political parties from the province. There's some potential letters or communications that could be sent just to add voice to the stance that Alberta municipalities and the majority of the municipalities in our province have taken on regard to political parties at the local level.
If I understand correct, it's only if they so choose, right? It's not going to be mandated. It's not like you have to be affiliated to a political party before you can run in a municipal election. It's only those that...
I think just as in the provincial election, you can run as an independent, you can run free of political party, but I don't think that really turns out well for anyone at the provincial or federal level.
Yeah, I can see where these kind of situations matter more in bigger centers because of the lack of clarity on what candidates, because they have so much input.
I think this is aimed at Calgary and Edmonton.
Yeah,
Because
really.
I know they're not too happy with Calgary and Edmonton in terms of what they're doing and things like that. So I think this is the way to get back at them a bit.
Yeah.
I think it has no relevancy to smaller towns. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, you consider the population of Calgary is more population in Saskatchewan. So then at some point it's like, okay, how do you run that in a way that makes sense for a city of that size, right? So I would have a hard time saying absolutely no, because it may benefit some municipalities for that reason. For our communities, I don't see why that's necessary. We're a small community, 3,000 people, everyone knows everyone. But in the cities, you don't have that opportunity, right? So that's where I would hesitate adding a voice in opposition to something like this when in some situations it could really be beneficial. So that's kind of my hesitation. That's myself personally, but I don't know where the rest of the council's at.
They talk about it not being associated with provincial parties, but man alive, I can see issues if provincial parties get their fingers into the local level and whatever, then that to me is really bad. So, maybe I'm cynical, but I just see some bad stuff ahead because not everyone's got morals.
Yeah, it can play both ways, right? So that's kind of the hard thing for us to draw a hard line saying no when it could work, or maybe it doesn't work. We don't know. So is anyone prepared to make a motion on this agenda item? No motion means we carry on without doing anything, but if someone would like to see a motion one way or the other.
I, being cynical again, I don't see them I think this is just, they're going to make their own decision. They're not going to really care what we think.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, so if no one's prepared to make a motion, then there is no further discussion on this item. Moving on to item 7, MD Willow Creek request for comment on a proposed bylaw 1979. I believe this came up recently, so it's more prudent.
Good evening, Council, once again.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
We received communications from the MD of Willow Creek, number 26, today regarding they issued a notice of intent to consider bylaw number 1979, being an amendment to their existing municipal land use bylaw number 1826. They are actually requesting for a review of this attached document and for us to comment. The MD is proposing to redesignate a portion of the Northwest Section 13, Township 9, Range Road 25, from rural general to grouped country residential. So they want us to comment, and they want this no later than 4 p.m. on the 22nd of March this year by written or verbal presentation if we want to be part of the public hearing or something. So they want our comments. They want us to review this. It's within the IDP zone, and that concerns us a bit. So Council may want to review this and make their comments.
Can you give us a rough idea where this is? Is this, 'cause I'm, based on their map, I'm not able to really.
Yeah, so this would be, I don't know, no, we won't put up a map, but this is northwest of town, and so it falls within the IDP, so it's in the first two sections, or quarter sections. And so it's not too far, obviously it's on the east side of the highway, so not too far north of like the gravel yard, Hurlbrook Rock. So it's just a little piece of land right off Highway 2. So it's just kind of that northwest part of the IDP, and they're just sectioning off, thank you, Miranda. They're just sectioning off that little tiny section. There's a better picture if you keep, oh, you only have this one. Yeah, changing it from rural, or was it general, and that's just turning to group country residential, which means they're just probably going to subdivide that off and sell it.
So, in administration's review, is there concerns or no? Okay. I don't see any concerns myself. It's quite distant now that you've highlighted the location. So that strip of land going through it, or that angled strip, is the highway, the main highway. So it's quite a bit north of the river and northwest of town. Okay, anyone prepared to make a motion to accept this information? Councillor Henniger makes a motion. If there is no further questions or discussion, we'll call the question on favor. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Item 8, retired fire truck. Who is speaking to this one? You have a pecuniary interest? Oh, good. Okay. Go ahead, Anthony.
I thought perhaps you wanted to speak to it. Yeah, so where's my papers? So as we're aware, Fort McLeod Fire Department got a brand new, fancy, beautiful new fire truck that we are putting to use well. And so we have an old truck, an older model that has been put out to pasture, retiring that model. Jim approached the town on behalf of the Rotary Club in hopes to secure that retired truck and send it down to Mexico through their Los Amigos project with the Southern Alberta Rotary Clubs. So the Rotary Club has made an offer of $3,000 to purchase the truck and then to send it down to be used. A few, I guess, details on the truck. The truck was in a minor accident right before it was retired, which is unfortunate. So there are some cosmetic, not much cosmetic, and a little bit of functionality that needs to be repaired. We did include the 2 repairs in there. One of them, which included body work, came in at $11,000, and then the other one, just to replace the pump and pipe work, comes in at $4,700. Normally, for a vehicle of this nature, we would seek bids or take it to auction. It's obviously quite an old truck, and it's been amortized all the way down to 0. Yeah, but it would be administration's recommendation that council accepts the $3,000 offer from the Rotary Club to purchase the retired fire truck and donate it to the Los Amigos project. I'm open to any questions you might have.
So our understanding is the Rotary would buy the truck and they would repair it and send it down to wherever.
Jim was saying that they would probably purchase the materials, whatever they needed to, and just send it all down to Mexico and let them fix it, because they would fix it at a
They
lot
can do
cheaper
it.
rate.
Sure.
But yes, that they would assist in the fix, and then the community in Mexico that ended up with it would take it as is.
And no objections, obviously, from administration regarding the proposal? Okay. Anyone prepared to make a motion as per the recommendation? Councillor Fox makes the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing, oh, Councillor Hanniger?
I just hope that we can get the photos that we've seen in the past so we can share on social media because it's really cool. That's my only comment.
That's the condition of so? Yeah. All right. With Councillor Hanniger on the photo. All right, if there's no further discussion, we'll call it the question. All in favor? Motion to sell the fire truck has been passed. And because that's our last agenda item and there's no in camera, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.